This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Slacker from 1990, directed by Richard Linklater, and we're joined by Patreon guest creep co-host
Real
Jared
guy.
Berger. Real guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Howdy.
Hi, Jared. I hope you're getting your money's worth on this wild ride. Here we are. Whatever. We're on the full podcast. We're like 2 hours or something in at least.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's good. It's fine. People love it. They want it.
Has that shame started boiling up in you yet, Jared Berger? Do you
Yeah.
feel it yet?
Yeah, I'll try to like, yes.
Yeah, that buyer's remorse sets in pretty quick when you're on this podcast. Except for Frank, because I think somehow
He's a masochist.
He feeds off of it. Yeah, everyone else has been like, "Ooh, I don't think I'm going to do that again." And it's like, yeah, we know.
Don't blame it. So Slacker doesn't apparently have a tagline, so that's a bummer.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, it's wild. You think it'd have something really on the nose or something really shitty, but damn.
What about?
Yeah. There are so many zingers in that. Here.
I was gonna say, what about like an original poster or something?
You guys work on that. I'm going to read
Yep.
the synopsis from Letterboxd.
Okay.
Austin, Texas is an Eden for the young and unambitious, from the enthusiastically eccentric to the dangerously apathetic. Here, the nobly lazy can eschew responsibility in favor of nursing their esoteric obsessions. The locals include a backseat philosopher who passionately expounds on his dream theories to a seemingly comatose cabbie, a young woman who tries to hawk Madonna's pap test to anyone who will listen, and a kindly old anarchist looking for recruits.
That's descriptive
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for the most part.
yeah.
I don't like the first part of that's a little fragrant is the word I'm going to use for that.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I think you nailed it. I kind of like to prefer the IMDb one. A day in the life of Austin, Texas, as the camera roams from place to place and provides a brief look at the overeducated, the social misfits, the outcasts, and the oddballs.
Yeah, I like that one.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I'm cruising posters and there's nothing really. There's no taglines, but there are quotes like "spellbinding," a scrappy and shrewdly hilarious first film, or imaginative, left field filmmaking. It couldn't be better.
Ugh.
I think this is the time where we also mentioned that this is Kevin Smith's favorite movie. I think.
Oh.
He says that.
Well,
And it
he
probably,
claimed,
and I would definitely say that this movie would have influenced him in the way where it's like, man, I could just make a movie, and out of that would come Clerks. So
I have it burnt into my brain. His direct quote verbatim is, "This is a fucking movie. I can do that," and he means it like with the most love and passion for it ever. Yeah, he's just like, I didn't know that you could do this and it'd be a movie, and that's what made him make Clerks. So, just so you know.
yeah, I mean, this like kind of belongs to that nebula of when I think film production costs were so like getting lower and lower, and people's I think ideas started to meet up well enough that you could. Because I think this movie, according to Wikipedia's budget, was $23,000, which I mean, it's still a chunk of money to us plebs. But I mean, you could raise that and put that together without like feeling too bad when it's like, yeah, I'm just making this movie with a bunch of people from town, and it'll be what it is. And then it went on to make like $1 million. It's an American story right there.
That's the dream, isn't it?
So before we jump into Slacker, how do you all feel about Richard Linklater over time and now, I guess? Because I feel like those are kind of maybe two different things. They are for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to go first, Jared Berger, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Thanks.
Let me maybe I'll blow your minds, but I've only seen Boyhood, Slacker, and his debut film, It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books. I have not. I will be watching everything else, but I have not watched anything else. And personal grief is there, but yeah.
So my follow up to that would be: are you gonna watch these right away, or are you gonna wait the 8 years for when we get to the before trilogy?
I'm definitely not going to wait for that, but I'm never. I'm definitely not going to wait for the before trilogy. But what is Dazed and Confused? It's like in the 300s, right? But wouldn't that be like a year from now? I don't know. I might just my roommate has the Criterion. I might just like watch it.
Just watch it.
Just watch it. I'll give you a little spoiler into a year or two from now. Dazed and Confused is wicked. It is very good. So just watch that anytime you want, man. It's good stuff. I like it a lot. So you've only seen a couple, eh?
Spy 336.
Yeah, so that's like a year and a half from now, maybe.
Well,
2 years.
Like 100. It's like 100 away.
So almost 2 years.
No.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's closer than the before trilogy. So
okay, RJ, how about you?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts and prayers when it comes to Richard Linklater?
Here's my hot takes. I think Dazed and Confused is real good. I love that movie. I always have. The befores I think are very good. Some people really talk about those movies as like changing their lives, and I'm just like, relax a little bit. Boyhood I thought was cool when it came out, but I think the novelty of it wore off really fast. Scanner Darkly and School of Rock, not bad little shows, Jer. Everybody Wants Some, a movie I absolutely did not think was very good. It's okay, but everyone was like, oh, it's so good, it's Richard Linklater. And I was like, no. So I think he's, I don't know, there's some peaks, but there's also some dips, you know.
Yeah, he's I think he's kind of he's a coin flip when it comes to quality. So I mean, I went through quite a Richard Linklater phase, like where I watched. I can't even say I watched everything because there's just movies I could never bring myself to watch. Those include Suburbia, The Newton Boys, and Tape. I just could never do it. I actually, even me and Orson Welles I've never watched. I can't watch them. Like there's nothing that interests me at all. And I'm like, yeah, they could be okay, but I just, life's too short. But that being said, I am a big fan, a stan for the Before trilogy. I think those movies are everything that they're hyped up to be. I mean, I just like when I finally did watch them, I was like, yeah, I completely bought into the story. I love that the chemistry. Well, I mean, we're going to talk about those movies someday down the road, but yeah, those movies are fantastic. Dazed and Confused, I think I really liked the first time, and then I rewatched it, and I was kind of like, the edges kind of showed for me more. But
I think you'll like it even more the third time.
Maybe. I think it's something with the selection of music in it though too. It feels very on the nose, and it's so influential, and it's so overbearing that it kind of hurts it for me. School of Rock's fine. Bad News Bears remake, nothing special at all. Fast Food Nation I kind of actually liked. I thought that was actually decent. And Bernie was meh. And then Boyhood was like good at the time, but I have no real drive to rewatch that. And of course, what am I skipping over here? Waking Life.
Yeah.
Waking Life. And
I don't even know Waking Life.
Oh yeah, I think RJ, I think you would probably really not like Waking Life.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, unless you're unless you're like really into rotoscope. It's kind of like Waking Life seemed like an experiment that then you could see pay off. I think in Scanner Darkly, which is also just okay. Yeah, Waking Life is kind of like Slacker again. It's like he basically did Slacker again 10 years later, but with actors, like with famous people instead.
Yeah,
it's
So here's a big question for you, Jared. As a Linklater stan, are you gonna check out Last Flag Flying, or are you gonna wait for the Criterion Hal Ashby, The Last Detail, of which this is a sequel to, and then watch it then?
I am probably gonna watch it pretty soon.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the reason why I asked about that road trip question was because the film I'm writing is a road trip film, so I'm trying to just pool my resources together, you know? So I'll probably have to watch that one, but I'll be excited to see that. What was it called?
Do you know The Last Detail?
No.
Okay,
Jack
so
Nicholson.
Oh, that's with Jack Nicholson, right?
Yeah.
I watched that one actually. I watched it with, like, over my roommate's shoulder. That one was pretty good. I like that ending.
Yeah, so that's Hal Ashby, Harold and Maude fame, and like being there. But Last Flag Flying is technically a sequel to The Last Detail, allegedly.
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 Or is it a direct sequel or is it a spiritual sequel?
I think it's a spiritual sequel. It's from, I think it's the author of the book. It's the same book, and it's similar people, but I don't think it's the same character. It doesn't go between the two. I could be wrong though. I've never seen Last Flag Flying. I just know The Last Detail pretty good.
So on a scale of on a scale of Star Wars and Hidden Fortress, and then, like, I don't fucking know anything else. Where does it go?
Last Detail or Last Flag?
Yeah, Last Detail. I mean, in terms of remakes.
Oh, well, I haven't seen. I actually haven't seen it yet.
Oh, that's right. You just said that. Well,
yeah, but no, it's allegedly a sequel. I don't know, but Last Detail is pretty good. I like it.
What I kind of like here is I think we're capturing the spirit of Slacker, the film. So because meandering, and also, I mean, what did people do in 1990 before there were podcasts? And that is essentially like what people do in podcasts when they're just when they're chatting and having your falls and things happening off screen. Who knows? Who knows?
Hey, I knocked that whole bucket over earlier, and no one really drew attention to it. I've knocked over lots of things in the podcast in the history of the 4 years, and no one's ever emailed in to complain about it.
It's true.
And that's all I'm going to say.
So Slacker was a rewatch for me.
Okay.
I only watched it for the very first time 5 years ago. This is a movie that I just always felt intimidated by, because I kind of feared that I wouldn't really like it had kind of missed me by, that its heyday of like watching it in the moment on a VHS tape had passed, and I was always like, I don't know. I look at that Criterion cover with this woman with sunglasses on, and I'm like, what's her story? What's this movie going to be about? I don't know.
Surprisingly less skateboarding than you'd expect.
Yeah, right.
Would be my review of this movie. Because it's like, I thought there was going to be all sorts of skating, but not the case.
I don't know if there was any.
None that I saw.
Yeah.
Not
at all.
Not in Austin in 1990. They took them
Sad.
all away. So, yeah, I mean, the whole Austin vibe, I guess, of 1990 was like, there was a lot of things were happening. It had quite like a lively music scene. You even hear a little Daniel Johnston just in passing in this movie, which is great. But I don't know about you, Jared, but there is like this movie captures fairly well what it feels like to kind of be in a college town or a city with a college community of like with coffee shops and bars and nothing else better to do in the summer.
Yeah, I can I can agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean, when I first watched this, there was like kind of like a cringiness to it, because I know people like this, and I think a lot of people do, and I think there's people who know of people like this, and they wouldn't want to spend any amount of time with them whatsoever, and so Slacker might be kind of like a gateway to hell for some. For me, this is kind of like, I don't know, it all depends on the mood I'm going to be in, but to me, like, this is like, obviously, I think Linklater was 30 when he made this, and so he kind of became like this poster child for the like Generation X kind of thing. But even though it's like he's not a Generation Xer, like, but he was kind of depicting this like in either of these characters. But there was something about the vibe, I guess, of this movie that feels really true, and that's like kind of an interesting way of thinking about movies, and I think this is where Slacker's super successful because instead of like, I mean, so how do you even, because it's really impossible to lay out what the movie has. It has no plot. Probably the most useful guide is using the cast list because it's in order of appearance, and it tells you what it tells you what they do. For instance, the first character we see is Richard Linklater, and he plays should have stayed at bus station, which of course is the great payoff line to the meandering story about dreamt existences and what could and what couldn't be, what is in multiple universes, spiraling out to a taxi driver who's just like, it's your dime, pal. And it's like, and this scene in itself could immediately just make people go, oh boy, an hour and a half more of this, huh? But like, I think like there's an element of like where like every single scene just changes, and like how can you really get hung up on any one scene, I guess, because it's like it's always moving and flowing. So like
it will be like over in like 5 minutes or whatever, you know.
And like I would say that like I think like almost every scene has at least like one really good line at some point, and then it continues on, because again, like when you're working with non-actors / local actors, unknowns, people who would go on to like be more, you just like you're just working with friends and stuff like that, and it has like cool, but I think like I didn't find it while watching it like obvious that these were like not stars, I guess. Like it felt like very naturalistic, and the way the camera roams around, there's times where it kind of shows its age, I guess, like where it's like, oh yeah, you could definitely tell he didn't really have a dolly. I think particularly in that second sequence. So first you have like Richard Linklater getting off the bus, catching a cab, and like immediately it's like, after watching nothing but black and white European movies for like months, watching this contemporary movie from 1990 again, like color, and it's like, oh, at last, like I've stepped back into the real world. And then you just have this guy talk on, and you watch this cab driver like shoulder check constantly and like check his mirrors and stuff like that. Like, even though it's like you don't know, is he actually driving or is the vehicle on the back of a truck driving? I was thinking about these things, these basic considerations of movie making. He gets dropped off. You never actually see him pay the cab driver, and you go, is that important? He walks down the street and he comes across a woman who's been the victim of a hit and run. You see a vehicle kind of drive off, and then you get a busybody woman who's jogging in place come and comment about what he should be doing. Don't touch her. And not breaking her stride. You have the guy who pulls up behind, who just starts hitting on this woman, giving her his card, and then this transitions to another man who just is like walking across the street and kind of observes this, and you kind of quickly start deducing that, what's with this religious weirdo? And then he gets a phone call of him being informed that his mother has been hit by a car, and you're like, oh. And it's just like this offhand little thing. It's like this like little vignette, and you see the entire story play out with like the police like figuring out really quickly that he's like run her down. And he like knows that they're coming for him. He sets like a little like film reel that's going to keep playing and looping of this image of this, looks like a woman pushing her son on his bike, and you're like, is this them? Is this family film? You don't know. It's just kind of this moment that's just left to loop, and he's taken away by the police. And then we get some more commentary by hoopleheads on the street saying, what's going on? I don't know, I heard that guy just like ran over killed his mom. And you're just like, information travels quick here in Austin. But it doesn't matter. Characters just kind of keep, and this is kind of like the flow of the movie. Characters just kind of literally coming in and out of scenes. You never see characters ever again. But then you just get introduced to, like, again, you can't get too bored because there's always something coming along. Like, eventually, probably the next real highlight sequence is probably the conspiracy theorist, who is like, man, that guy is so many guys.
He reminds me of this dude that I know that I tried to do a podcast with once. He'd wear Batman t-shirts and he was always invading your space.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that the tucked Batman t-shirt with the
tucked Batman t-shirt.
He's got a bag over his shoulder, very confident, looking out into the world, pontificating, just waiting for his next victim.
Yeah, and he totally steals that glass from the restaurant. Anyways, what were you gonna say, Jared Berger?
I'm confident that I have met. Well, obviously not in looks. It's not the same person, but I'm confident I met the exact person that's based off of, downtown. This guy. We were at a donut shop, and this guy came in. This late night, and he sat right next to us, and was trying to convince us that you could not only that you can control people by giving them massages, like a puppet. And then
problematic.
And then this homeless guy came by and asked us for change, and he offered him a seat and then started giving him a massage, and he totally fell asleep or whatever, hypnotic trance, and we were like we just finished our donuts and headed out of that because it was very cultish, and it's just there are those people all over Austin all the time.
The power of back rubs, I guess, hey?
Let me tell you, Jared, you're a young man, and you're going to get a lot more of that for a while longer. There's just something about crazy, and they love young youthful faces because they're not going to tell me no. They're going to be susceptible to this bullshit, and because they see you as someone that will be nice to them, and then you'll get to hear all about it. Eventually, it stops. Because they don't see you as an ally anymore, or because they sometimes it's this weird thing.
Once you hit 50, our boy J Dog over there, you just don't get attention anymore.
No, you're like a just a piece of meat.
Yeah. The important question though, what kind of donut did you get, and was it good?
They had a Homer. They had a Homer. I think I had a Homer that night, which is just, the Simpsons.
The pink.
Pink with sprinkles on it. Yeah, that's good. They got a whole bunch at that shop that's good. But yeah.
I would have got a jam myself. I don't know about you, Jared. I'm a big jam boy.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the Homer is never as good as you want it to be.
Yeah.
No food is as good as how it looks in cartoons, though. Because think about everything in The Simpsons, the food, and it's that can never be real life.
Lasagna is better than it looks in Garfield.
I disagree. I think lasagna looks pretty good in Garfield.
Ugh.
It's the way he talks about it.
Well, yeah, but then you see what he's eating. You're like, what is that? It doesn't look like lasagna at all.
Well, that's cat lasagna.
But no,
John doesn't feed him person lasagna.
Yes, he does.
He shouldn't.
Because doesn't John make a lasagna for himself and then Garfield eats it and he goes, Garfield?
He shouldn't. I mean, I give my cats human cheese sometimes too, but you got to moderate that, man. Too much cheese is bad for cats. Can't be eating human lasagna.
It is like we're in Slacker.
Is this just
I'm kind of waiting for maybe eventually the podcast will transition to another podcast.
Yeah,
and then you'll never hear, and then the Tremors podcast.
My roommate will walk in and we'll talk about Criterion supplements starting at
that's
Grand
almost,
Illusion.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, supplements and Eddie Murphy movies.
Talk about World War One.
Damn.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah, the other thing with the conspiracy, man, I love that. As soon as he finishes walking those people to the guy to the door, and then he immediately just stands around and he finds another the one couple, and he's like, oh hey, and he starts talking to him. He's like, we live here, and he's like, oh okay, and he's like, and just oh god, when will he strike again?
Yeah.
He's like, I'll wait around, make sure that you're okay once you get in there. And then he walks them home and they're like, yeah, we got to get in. He's like, yeah, you're busy. Why wouldn't you be busy? You're home.
No.
You're busy. That's like when you're trying to leave the room, Jared, or a conversation for that matter. And you're very clearly making the visual signs that you're trying to leave. You're getting closer to the door. You're spinning your keys on your lanyard. You're like, I gotta go, but the person just doesn't clue in,
Well,
right?
sometimes they talk a little faster, a little bit more desperately.
Yeah. You hearing this? You seeing this?
Oh yeah, I hate when Jay
Like
Leno
that?
comes over.
He's a bad dude. Well, what?
Bad dude.
Anyways.
Yeah, there's a often like there's a lot of like balance of there's like the the intellectual conversations, the kind of boyfriend girlfriend elements, just like little things tossed around. There's a lot of like people trying to get out of awkward conversations. There's examples of people who are like going over to certain people's places to like find out more about televisions and video and VHS and
I like TV, man.
TV, man.
Because I think that's a perfect bridge into Videodrome. This guy's just got TVs running all the time. I thought he was pretty cool.
On his back too. That was, I don't see the practical element to that, but sure.
Hey man, 1990 was a different time. Let me tell you, I was just born. I was rolling into the scene. People had TVs strapped to their backs. Jared was a young man of I think 32 in 1990, just out on the town and getting videos. You actually reminded me a lot of so it's half a joke but half serious. When he plays that video of that grad student who's like about to go shoot up a bunch of people, I was like, this looks like Jarrett. And then for a second I was like, this sounds like Jarrett. But then he starts like loading guns and rifles and I was like, oh, maybe not. But that guy looks like you 100%. I'll put that on the Instagram later.
Yeah, that'll get us a lot of followers. Net gains.
Well, I mean, does anything we do ever garner listeners? We do nothing. So
yeah, this is true. I didn't like the entire sequence involving the psychic saying the next person who walks in front of us will not live for much longer. I think 2 weeks, and then this hapless guy just walks on by. He stops at a coffee shop, and of course there's the woman.
Oh yeah.
Which one?
Saying what's the line she says?
She's like, you should never traumatize a woman with sexual intercourse, I think is what she says over and over again.
And then there's the other guy who's like, don't you fucking look at me.
Yeah.
That's how you and me roll in Arby's.
Mm-hmm.
People are giving us grief.
All the time. But yeah, that felt very real. And the guy just like, he orders his coffee and he just sucked that down. And it seems like no one seems to care that this is just like the usual lunacy that just happens day to day. Man, oh man. I guess like, the next bit that jumps out at me, there's almost like a storyline involving like the bookstore, the conspiracy a go-go author, where it's like it seems like there's almost like that's like a pretty extended sequence that kind of comes out of, oh man, how does that connect up? The guy tossing the typewriter into the over the bridge.
Yeah, so the symbol of ending their relationship, which goes to the couple that passed by, and then the guy says something sexually aggressive to the lady, and then they're gonna go to a movie, but she's like not into it, so she goes into the bookstore, and then she's met with another sexually aggressive man, the JFK incel is what I would call him, because he's just like, we were in a class together like 2-3 years ago, and she's like, oh, were we? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, you ever read this book on JFK?
I've been writing one.
He's like, I want to call it this, but my publishers, they don't agree. They don't agree.
And then I think that scene kind of has like a hard stop, because then we kind of like transition from that to the two dudes,
the car part poachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like there's like a hard. That's like it almost like ends there, and then we cut to that, which then turns to my hero of the film, the hitchhiker.
Yeah.
Charles Gunning. Man, that guy. What a luck this guy's got.
Well, how often, Jared, have you hitchhiked?
None.
And if you had, would you have wanted a cold one with the boys while you were in the car with them?
Probably. I mean, I'm probably very thirsty.
So I saw your review, Jared, and I was like, you know what? I agree. I would like a cold one with those boys too, and I would like to be picked up by them.
And live in 1990.
I did live in 1990, almost the whole year.
Almost
the whole year.
It's not voting age though. Can't
Not
vote for
quite.
Ron Paul.
Oh. What about Rand Paul?
Ugh.
That's-
Remember when Rand Paul got beat up by his neighbor?
no.
Oh, that was good times. So yeah, this Charles Gunning guy. The same year this came out, apparently, I guess he must have got picked up by the Coen brothers or the casting people because he's in Miller's Crossing. He's a hitman in that. Because I was like, this guy looks so familiar, and I went, oh yeah, that's the same dude. He was in fact, RJ, he's in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. In episode
one?
The Perfect Mate, he plays Miner Number 3.
Perfect mate. Can you
That
repeat
is season
what my
season 5, episode 21.
you know what my review of that was? Season 521. I think that's the one with Femke Janssen, the perfect mate,
Okay.
where everyone's lusting for her.
Oh, yeah.
I'll look it up.
Well, he's a minor in it, so he probably is also like.
It is.
It's probably,
So my review is Worf Fleeman. That's where his lips curl up because everyone's attracted to Femke Janssen.
Mhm.
Interesting.
I got it, but then sadly, Charles Gunning died in like 2002 at like 51.
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
It happens,
Well,
I guess.
you know,
right?
as he informs us, did you vote in the most recent election? Hell no. I've got less important things to do. And you go, did he misspeak his line, or is that exactly what he meant to say?
I'd like to believe that's what he meant.
I mean, these lines,
Yes.
every single commodity you produce is a piece of your own death.
It's pretty good.
Oh yeah, because this is when he's being interviewed. I think I may live
Yeah.
badly. He's got his fucking drags because he's got multiple cigarettes.
Oh,
Yeah, he takes 2 from the one dude in the coffee shop.
I may live badly, but at least I don't have to work to do it.
I sympathize with him a lot, especially multiple smokes. As a guy who used to smoke, Jared, you take as many as you could, baby. You wrap like 9 together, just give it a rip. Go for whatever you can.
Right.
Wow.
You got to get them in.
So from that point on, like the next kind of like noteworthy scene would be the scene with the father and his daughter returning from a stroll back to their home, where they find a burglar. In which case, which then turns to Louis McKay launching into his old anarchist speech, where he takes this man hard on his luck, gives him a coffee, treats him like a human being, and you're just like, oh, this is really cool. And then he starts talking and talking and talking, and you go, oh. It's like, I don't know, it's watching it again, it's been so long, I totally had forgotten this scene, and I was like, oh yeah, this is fucking amazing. Actually, talking about how he wished he had died in the town square when Charles Whitman had like gone sniping. He's like, my goddamn wife, God bless her. It's like, I wish we could have died like in history, and talking about the Spanish Civil War and all the things we would do, and it's like, no, he's just this old man, he wants to bring down the system. Like, I wish we had more old men like this.
Well, you could be one.
Hey, I'm still young. I've got a long ways away to go. But yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of said enough for myself at this. There's like another scene that jumps out at me is like, so yeah, there's like some pixel vision. You all know about that pixel vision?
No.
Oh.
Tell me about it.
Well, okay. So there's like a Fisher.
I don't know.
There's like a Fisher Price camera.
I kind of vaguely know that.
It's like very, very primitive way to make film.
Okay.
It has a particular aesthetic quality, and I feel like this slacker might have inspired a person or 5 to hit up Value Villages and clear those up. Where now Pixel Vision cameras are very collectible and very pricey because of hipster nostalgia.
Those piece of shit assholes.
I'm actually very glad that up to this point I have not said hipster to describe anybody in this, because that seems to be like, I think I've seen the Madonna pap smear woman described as a hipster, and I'm like, it's like
Brad Brush.
It's kind of more of a grifter, like kind of again, very real. People like this all over the world. I do love the anti-artist fellow Whammo who starts talking to the English girl who's the photographer for Dairy Queens, and he starts like, they just start like going off on one another about all their cliche bullshit lines that her work and what all his cliches are. And like, yeah, I used to be into art, but I'm not anymore. What's the point? It's good stuff.
Art isn't real.
It's an RJ, but I mean, you just know art's not real.
I know, so I have no issues because I just know it's not.
And like the end of this film, I'll throw it to you, Lot, as I toss the camera off the cliff as it spins off into nothingness and the credits roll. What did you two think about Slacker, as neither one of you had watched it before?
I'd love to hear what Jared Berger thinks. If you don't mind going first, bud.
I'll go first. I'll do it. Well, I've watched it for the first time recently.
Okay, right.
Over the summer. I just wanted to. I knew what it was about, and I wanted to
enough
check.
that you wanted to come onto our show to watch it again.
Perfect.
Yeah, I thought about watching the director commentary, and I got through the first scene where they were talking about, the dream or whatever, right? And I knew that he had his other film on the disc that had director's commentary, and he just talked over the whole scene. I was like, well, it will be like not watching the movie, so I'll just go ahead and turn off the director commentary and save it for another day. But yeah, he was talking about, what interests him about the movie and himself in the film. But, it was just, that taxi scene, I find it both incredibly annoying just because, the conversation or, if you can call it a conversation, but it's also kind of, I don't know. It has this quality to it that's cool, I guess, or not cool, but just.
I think it feels very genuine.
Yeah, it's very real, and I can just I definitely taxi driver to Uber, I can imagine that exact conversation or the same sentiment happening, nowadays. And I don't think that this aged too much besides, technology or stuff, is still the same college.
It seems recognized. Yeah, it's still recognizable.
Yeah.
I mean, not to, I guess, interject on you too much here, but the one thing I was thinking about, and we just started saying, kind of brought it up for me, is that sometimes we watch these movies in the collection, and you kind of wonder, did the filmmaker, did the director really care about this? Does the subject matter or content seem that important? And if it is, you're well, this doesn't seem to be have anything to do with reality. It doesn't seem like anything that was that related to them in any way whatsoever. But you can tell, based on especially how Richard Linklater continues to make movies for the next 30 years, that everything here is he continues on later on, these conversations, the way people talk about these questions, it's he's really interested in it. And so I think that adds to the genuineness. I mean, yeah, we might roll our eyes and go, oh my god, this is interminable. No one, we've all been in conversations like this at parties with friends, and or even we're embarrassed for ourselves because we've had these thoughts and we're thinking, man, I'm really smart. I wonder if anyone else has ever thought when I look at blue, is the blue that I see the same blue that you see? And these are conversations you have at sleepovers with friends, and then here you have 20-year-olds having these conversations, and when you see it in film, you're oh god, I don't want to be like that. But it's yeah, you probably have had those thoughts. And so there's kind of an earnestness that's nice with Linklater, with Slacker here, is there's that earnestness and genuineness.
Yeah, I mean, I get that a lot with I don't want to call it pseudo intellectualism or whatever. It's more it's just raw, that guy who was reciting Dostoevsky or whatever, it was just it seems he would be able to write a decent paper or whatever, but having a conversation with him would be just goddamn infuriating, and that's just the constant vibe of these people in this movie who just talk and talk and talk and talk.
It's too bad Infinite Jest hadn't been published yet, because it'd be out there in the movie somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, the scenes that I thought were like really like I the scenes that I think were standoutish is like the run over scene, where like they run over the mom or whatever, just because it's like this like shot of like, you know, uh like right outside of campus, and like it's like I don't know, it's just like almost like a time capsule type thing, where like, you know, I see like the buildings that exist and the buildings that, you know, were destroyed, and like the places where like buildings would be built, and you know, I see like, you know, people walking around or whatever, and it's just like how it would be today, except the like the landscape's different and the cars are different, but like everything else is like the same, and like, you know, like unchanging. So I thought that was like, you know, kind of like interesting, I guess, just like how the film doesn't try it's not trying to be a time capsule, you know, but it's
No,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
now it kind of feels like that. But
right,
when Linklater set out to make it, he was just making a movie about his friends, and
right,
I think that's
yeah,
why I think whatever quality it has that works for it is because that was the approach. Like I don't think anybody sets out to make a movie to be a time capsule.
no,
I think
yeah,
I've at some point described this podcast as maybe acting as something like that, which is why I think it's interesting to have like the the news of the time in which we're recording, because
hmm,
it kind of places things and situates it in a way that'll be interesting to people down the road, I guess. But I mean, like, there's a bit more. I think I probably put more thought into that element than Richard Linklater put into like, oh, I wonder what people will think about 1990. When he was like,
yeah,
no, he was just making a movie about this is life as it is now. And I think because it has like a timeless quality to these people that people watch now, and I've read myself make a comment about this in my review, and I've seen other people say, I can't stand this because I know people just like this, which is fascinating. Because
hmm,
people, I mean, North America, Western civilization, they haven't changed that much, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of great that he made this movie that I feel seems so real and is situated
hmm,
in a way. I guess I started talking about this at the beginning. It started off as a how he places the camera in a way that actually I feel captures reality much better than a lot of other filmmakers had. And I think that's what's really interesting about kind of that kind of post 80s Sundance film, like when Sundance came about and starting acquiring these independent movies. So movies like Clerks, or even like Reservoir Dogs, which is again a super like fairly stylized movie, but they feel like they live in this world that the viewers are watching. And I don't know if people talk about that enough, because sometimes you watch
hmm,
like, E.T. doesn't feel like the real world. It feels like
Better.
it feels like 80s world. And that's kind of like this weird thing where you have movies like, or TV shows like Stranger Things, and you have like this whole like the 80s nostalgia, kids on bike stuff, where everybody's in
hmm,
love with the 80s, but what they're actually in love with is pulp culture from the 80s.
Mm.
But I don't know. I would be curious to see like where's the love letters to Austin of the 90s, and there's bits and drabs of that exist. Actually, on the Junk Food Dinner podcast recently, they were talking to a guy, or these two guys that did a TV show that was set in Austin for MTV in the same period of time, and it seems like it was like this really fascinating place. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's like a lot of love for the
hmm,
90s. I think often 90s is used as a negative, but so was the 80s for a very long time. It was like, oh, it's so 80s, but now 80s is cool, and people still are kind of negative on the 90s. Every week, there's usually some reference to Seinfeld music,
Bum,
but
bum, bum, bum.
thank you. And so I'm curious how long it'll take for 90s nostalgia to really like come around, and suddenly it's like, yeah, Slacker, it's so relevant. Like maybe we're not there. We're not there yet.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree with all that. You know, I guess I'll talk more about that whenever I get to impossible to learn to plow by reading books, just because that's all that movie is, and it has even less plot than Slacker. But I mean, I already talked about like the conspiracy theorist guy or whatever, and like I really like that shot of them roaming in like the same area in that neighborhood, you know, and it's just like that's interesting, and like the Madonna Pap smear girl or whatever, you know, that was I don't know if it's just because it's like the Criterion like cover, but like I felt like that was like, you know, when that like character came on, I was like, oh, this is like this is iconic. But then like in the next two scenes, I like, you know, forget about it, and then like I look at the cover and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, she was in it.
Right.
For the longest time, I thought it was a dude on the cover.
I did too.
Yeah, and then whenever I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is definitely a woman," and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, to each their own."
It's like, well, pictures are confusing, dude.
Yeah.
It's well, I mean, yeah, I think that, yeah, that's part of that character though too. Like, when I think of people that like her that I've met, I'm like, yeah, they kind of have like this like kind of like more like masculine way about them, and the way they talk and stuff like that, and like this fast way of talking, and like but then they have this like side hustle, be it hockey cards or Pokemon. They're like, hey man, I got this sweet score on eBay. You interested? And you're like, whoa, who the what are you? Like, how do you exist in the world? But it's just like hitting people up on the street saying, I got this online, or I got it. And you're like, what was the network like in 1990 to like score this? Like nowadays we wouldn't even like, oh yeah, I got like Madonna's pubes. Like, people get that shit. People get weirder shit on eBay, and we would like, oh, well, that's fine. But in 1990, that's like mail order. You or like you have to like be on some sort of IRCs. I don't know. You got to be on some like ARPA.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
deep internet. You know, real weird circles. You're like, how is she on this? All these mysteries that are left out there.
But it's great because it's plenty to think about while you're watching the movie, and you know, if it like gets you captivated like after the movie, you know, like, you know, my friends like watch this, but I wasn't with them, and like we talk about it, and it's just like, you know, if we can hold conversations about like a character that we saw for like 5 minutes, then like that's pretty good, I think, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, then it goes after the old anarchists. It gets like kind of like there's not a lot that stands out, and then the movie like just like ends, you know. And so I think like the first hour of this is like pretty great, and then it's just like slow, I guess. I don't know. It's weird to judge the structure of this film, you know.
Yeah, I do think it runs out of steam as it kind of goes on, like because there's kind of like an arc to it too, because it takes place over the course of a day, I think is right to say, because it kind of starts like at some indeterminate point earlier in the day, and there's no like, oh, is this? It's not calculated where like, oh, the sun sets here or rises here. That's not true, because when he arrives on the bus, is it like early morning, and then it goes from there?
Like the first shot out of the
out of the bus
I remember
depot.
watching it twice. Well, it starts like the credits are like him just on the bus like watching the window, and I think that it was like a sunrise, or at least like a purplish sky or whatever, you know. And so I think that was like what they were going for, you know.
Right. So and that's like it's super low key.
Yeah. They don't it's not stressed at all, and like I remember when I first watched it and like it was night, I was like, oh, I thought that this was all occurring at once pretty much, you know.
Right.
Well, obviously not, but like, you know, in real time, you know. So I don't know, you know. Yeah, and there were a couple of like film making things that I thought were like interesting, because like I filmed at UT, and there are a couple locations that like we picked that like were in the movie, and it was like, oh, that's cool, you know. But like none of us had like watched the movie to that point, and like um there's like the shot of like the UT Tower whenever they're talking about the shooting or whatever, and then
Right.
like the bell rings. That bell rings like every 15 minutes, and like it's a nightmare being anywhere like visible with the tower, because you're gonna hear it like all the fucking time. And so like we have to like time out like when we start our shots or whatever, and know like we can't start shooting if it's like right before the like tower bell rings or whatever. So it was just weird things like that where I'm like, oh, they just put it into the movie and didn't give a shit about it. That's cool, you know?
Cinema verite.
That's right.
Or
Yeah.
something like that. Guerrilla filmmaking. So you never explicitly said, because I think it's better that you don't actually say where you live, what your full name is, your social insurance and stuff like that. But I think it's safe to say, based on your the way you kind of talk about things, you are proto Richard Linklater, where you are in a similar area doing similar things, and that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty neat, Jared.
That's
And
why I
Jared.
picked the movie.
Nice. Well, I didn't know. I was like, I know people have picked crazier movies before. Like sometimes someone's like, I'm going to come on for that movie. It's like, really?
Mhm.
Why?
Yeah.
But I thought you were just a big Richard Linklater guy. But now it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Cool.
I mean, like when I bought the Criterion, I bought it at like well, I know you guys don't have the Barnes and Noble sales or whatever. But like I was there like looking at the Criterions, and these guys came up, and I like picked out Slacker, and they like were like, oh yeah, I'm from Austin, I have that, and like, you know, we talked about Austin or whatever. So, you know, it's weird how like, you know, just I don't know, like this selection or whatever of the film. But yeah.
That's cool.
Does RJ, do you want to talk about the movie?
No.
Do you have more, man? Like, go ahead, keep ripping, because I feel like you got more better things to say than I would.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's one thing I kind of want to talk about. So there's two times in the movie that they where like students or like former students or whatever are at what's called co-op, which is like, I'm sure they have different names in different like places, but in Austin, it's whenever like a student or a group of students like buy a property, right?
Mhm.
And so they're not like renting it or anything, and then they, you know, build out a whole bunch of rooms, and then they, you know, rent to students at like a much cheaper price, but the students are like managing the place. It's like self-managed, and it's just complete disasters, as you can like, you know, imagine. There's like, you know, mold everywhere, and it smells like piss, and like the walls are spray painted, and like it's like a, like a dorm without rules, you know, and like that, it's not like, you know. So like that's where the guy who like ran over his mother like went to, and I believe that the commentary on the other film I watched said that that was Linklater's room, but like when I first watched the movie, I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, you know, I went to a party in the same like, you know, in the same like thing, and so, and then I know someone who lives there. Then I was like, I wonder if they are in the room that Linklater is in, and it's just like weird how close all that stuff is. Mm-hmm. And then another moment where that happens is like, it's after the conspiracy theory guy, and it's whenever they go into that place and they're talking about politics, and then they go upstairs, and then there are like these cryptic clues about like, you know, atomic bombs and like whatever, you know, like that guy left, and so that's also at like a co-op or whatever. And it's just I mean, I've heard a lot about like other students who are like at other schools, but like I don't know, it's I'm just surprised that like I haven't really heard people talk about like a place like that, and like that's like represented in this film, and it's like, it's just weird, you know.
I don't think we have anything like that up here. Do we, Jared?
Not. No.
I don't know, man. Like
I don't know if that flies in our neck of the woods.
I've never seen it here.
Co-ops.
Co-ops.
We have co-op.
We have co-op, which is like a farmers initiative where you can go get farm supplies and like
and now they're into
other things.
Busting unions.
Yeah. But even I lived in Colorado and I went to university there, and I never heard of anything like that. It could have been there, but it went over my head if it was. That sounds pretty crazy. It's news to me.
I mean, yeah, it's
gross.
It was. They RJ would definitely not like it. They're nasty. We filmed in a couple, but like, you know, it's just weird seeing spray paint on the inside of buildings, you know? And like you go into like the kitchen and it's like students cooking for everyone, and it's just weird, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the world that Slacker lives in, I guess, you know?
As gross as the reality would be, I bet it would be good to have into a movie just because of how disgusting it is. It's like, yes. And
it just, I felt like it breathed a lot. I mean, you guys can probably speak to this since you didn't know about it before, but like, I feel like it brings a lot of character to the locations or whatever, you know? Like, it makes things feel lived in more than like normal, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there's like one thing to be like make the argument for, and I've talked about this many times in the past about kind of like sets compared to like on location, like being in a real space, because then people act differently, and the way that the cameras move and stuff like that act differently. And this is a completely different thing because the scale of the production is going to be so much smaller, so you can get away with things, and then like also depict places that don't normally get shown. Like how many times how many movies are set in Austin, and in actual Austin? I mean, now there's more probably. And the thing I was trying to remember earlier was that there was a TV show. It was called Austin Stories from 1997. It lasted one season on MTV, and apparently was sort of like a sitcom cross between Seinfeld and Slacker.
Oh, what was the music like, do you think?
You'll have to report that one to me, RJ, because I don't watch things.
You never seen Seinfeld?
Oh, I've seen Seinfeld.
Well, what was the music like there? Wow. See, in all 4 years, I think I've made the Seinfeld sound like every week, but this is the first time I've ever heard you do it, and I'm not a fan. But anyways,
I leave it to the master.
Well, I don't have too much to say about the film proper. However, I can talk about the supplements if you guys want to, or would RJ like to talk about the movie that we're talking about first?
RJ, you talk about the movie.
Yeah,
I'll rip through this bad boy real quick, and then I'd love to hear about some supplements because it's something we don't ever do. All right, here, first time watch for Slacker. I told you guys about what I think of Richard Linklater earlier. I'm a Linklater sub-stan, which is not a real stan, a half stan for Rich. Anyways, Slacker, I think is good. I think there are a few things that kind of don't really make sense to me, or not even that, not even make sense. There are a few segments that the inclusion of them in this movie kind of I find odd, but I do up front, I think I can see why this is here. This is a movie I actually think deserves to be here, unlike so many other movies that we watch where it's like, what is this? Who gives a shit? This one I can see why it's there, and for a few reasons. One is I know it's done to death now, but 30 years ago, the style of the filmmaking, the narrative, it is very Seinfeld-esque. It's about nothing, Jarrett. It's just about life, but it's relatable to people, so I like that. And I do like the way it bounces around from person to person. And even Slacker, I don't think invented it, but I do think kind of it presents it in a nice little flow. So I see why it's here as a, like, in terms of a structural thing. Structural, Jared. That's a
Wow.
big word people use
Wow.
about filmmaking.
I
Structural.
feel like I better get my wallet out.
Hey, you want to hear about structural artisanal film craft, Jared? Because I can tell you all about it, bud.
Can you tell me
All about it.
Can you tell me about post structure?
Post-structuralism?
Yeah.
So we have to go back to 1962 Russia if we want to get into that. But I do see the appeal in that sense. So I think that's good. I also kind of like what you said, Jared Berger, real guy, apparently. I don't know. I'm still on the fence. I like where some of the conversations, they do seem like the opening one, I can see that losing a lot of people, but it's like I do know that. It's like stream of consciousness, right? Where it's these people who are just speaking. And sometimes it's like, wow, this guy's an asshole. And then sometimes it's like, I've thought that. And then other times it's like, that's actually a good idea. And I think that's just how people think, right? But there are some people who verbalize that in certain ways, and there are some people who articulate it a little bit better than others, I think. So, right, Jarrett? Am I using enough $10 words for you over there, buddy?
I'm tapped, man. I mean,
You're tapped?
You're
All
above
right.
my pay grade.
So, I like those conversations. Sometimes it comes off like real stinky, real skunky. Sometimes it's like, I'm on board with that. So I do think, as you both pointed out, the way he does it, I think, is pretty genuine for the most part. So I like that. I like the other things. This movie itself, there are a few points that drag a little bit for me, and some of them, one of the biggest thing. Apparently, I just look at my notes. I was writing down character names, and I wrote incels down 4 times.
Yeah.
And I know Jared is like, he's like, do you know what that means? I don't. But I had movie incel, JFK incel, and then quote from the movie, quote unquote, it symbolizes the bitch incels, because I guess that was a quote in this movie. There's all sorts, guys. What was I even talking about? Okay. Yeah. So some of the interactions with people, I think, are very relatable, and you're just like, yeah, I get it. And then some of the other ones, I think, are the ones that stand out for me that are a little strange are the guy who runs over his mom, because I'm like, and I think the biggest part about that, why it stands out, is it's immediate. It's the third scene. And when I was watching that, I was like, what is this? I was like, is this video violence? What are we getting into here? So it stands out for that reason. But then there are a few other ones. Like that one, I'm like, this seems a little out of place, but whatever, I'll go along with it. The burglar situation, that one also felt out of place for me, because I was like, why is this here? Why is this included? Like, I see it as a standalone thing. It's like, yeah, wouldn't it be crazy if like people came home, there was a burglar there, and this weird old terrorist man quickly diffused the situation and then talked a lot. But that one kind of stuck out to me too, because I was like, I don't really know why this is here. And then the other one, even though I actually liked it, I really like TV Man, but the video he plays with the like gunner grad student, I like that too. But like some of those scenes, they feel like very jarring. Like they swing to the other side, like of a spectrum of some sort. But it's a real jolt to a different kind of like thing, and I'm like, where does this fit in? So there are a few things like that kind of really stand out to me, where I'm like, what's up with this? What's up with that? But on the whole, I see why it is talked about in the ways that it is. I don't know if it's one thing or the other. I don't really know about Richard Linklater, but it's better than a lot of the other stuff we've been watching lately. I'll tell you that much.
High praise.
High praise.
If you guys want to jump on any of that, feel free. Or Jared Berger, if you want to talk about some real supplements, I'd love to hear about it. It's up to you.
Yeah, that all sounds great. I think we're all three in unison with this film.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's two that I watched for this. His debut short is called Woodshock, and it's like I don't know, it's like music festival footage.
Oh,
It's
good.
okay, I guess. Yeah, I know.
It's
you
like
guys love
Monterey Pop.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was one of the influences, just based on like psychedelic editing sequence or whatever, you know. But it's impossible to learn to plow by reading books. I'll just call it plow for now on. Is like, I don't know. It's like Slacker, but like it's basically a very loose story. Like Linklater as himself, pretty much like goes and travels and comes back, and that's it. And it's just him doing mundane stuff, shaving, showering, doing laundry, looking out the window of a train, looking out a different window of the train. And it has this like weird, like lonely quality that's like not lonely, just like passing the time. And I don't know, I really liked it. And the director commentary is just very good. And he talks about filmmaking and what he was trying to do and how it relates to Slacker or whatever. And the beginning of the Slacker commentary talks about how like the character that's in this movie is like a continuation into the guy who like speaks, but like his whole like speech in Slacker is like way more words that it's spoken in this fucking movie. It's like a silent movie pretty much, because Linklater just did like literally all of it himself on a tripod. And so yeah, I'd give it a watch if you guys really like Slacker, to the podcasters out there, you know. But yeah, that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say I feel like I've seen it, but I would definitely want to rewatch it to guarantee that, because that was back when I would have seen this initially. I was a little bit more adamant about watching those special features, but it's been a while. And what you said, I'm like, that sounds kind of familiar, but like, yeah, I can't remember if I've watched it.
I don't watch anything, so
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you recommended it to the people who do care about this.
Hey, while you guys have been talking, one thing occurred to me. I was like, you know, where does slacker as a word come from? And like, I wonder what the significance of it was, if it was like important when Slacker came out. And my favorite, though, is I won't get into like the historical relevance of it, but the term slacker achieved renewed popularity following its use in the 1985 film Back to the Future, in which James Tolkien's character Mr. Strickland chronically refers to Marty McFly, his father George McFly, Biff Tannen, and a group of teenage delinquents in Part 2 as slackers. It gained subsequent exposure from the 1989 Superchunk single Slack Motherfucker and the 1990 film Slacker. Slacker became widely used in the 1990s to refer to a type of apathetic youth who were cynical and uninterested in political or social causes, and is a stereotype for members of Generation X. Richard Linklater, director of the aforementioned 1990 film, commented on the term's meaning in a 1995 interview, stating that, quote, "I think the cheapest definition of a slacker would be someone who's just lazy, hanging out, doing nothing. I'd like to change that to somebody who's not doing what's expected of them. Somebody who's trying to live an interesting life, doing what they want to do, and if that takes time to find, so be it." Unquote.
Yeah. If that speaks to you, definitely watch the Plow movie, you know? Yeah. RJ?
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Absolutely speechless.
Are you floored?
You're looking at it, man. What do you think?
You're floored upright. Well, I wonder if it's maybe time to throw to.
Oh God, I forgot about all this.
I never do. Who hates Slacker?
I don't know. Let's see.
Let's take a look.
Let's check it out. Let's see this.
Jay
Leno's. We should get him on. What's he doing? Nothing, I'm sure.
This does feel like our headlines segment, you know? Remember headlines? Everybody loved headlines.
So whenever I was watching listening to my first episode of this, this is the thing that really struck me, and I was like, oh, I'd like to watch another one of this. Just people trashing a movie that you guys like, and then you guys responding to that. But yeah,
but by shitting upon them. First up,
yes.
half a star by Mr. Devoy.
Okay, nice.
Fuck this movie. A movie about nothing. Movie snobs will say, that's the whole point. Well, if nothing happens, why should I bother watching it?
Do you think he's seen Seinfeld?
He probably. It's inescapable.
It's weird that they're like a movie about nothing, but they like, so just hear me out here. Some of their 5-star films include Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, Spaceballs, Life of Brian, a lot of Monty Pythons, things like that. A bunch of other shit. It doesn't matter. Those movies, I know they're about things, but those movies aren't really about anything. Not really.
They're about laughs.
Sure. Other half-star films of his include Moulin Rouge for some reason. And then other one-star films are musicals. I don't know. Not very interesting. It says there's nothing here, Jared. There's nothing here.
Okay. Next up, Emma, half a star. This amused me for a tiny bit of time and then felt forced and awkward like a student film. I had to turn this off as I could not keep watching.
Jarrett, are you ready for some serious shit over there?
Okay.
Emma's favorite film is Call Me By Your Name. Because of course it is. But then Snowpiercer, Logan, and Children of Men, which I feel like don't all fit together. But do you want to hear what some half-star films of Emma's are?
Yes, please.
You ever heard of Before Midnight by Richard Linklater?
I have.
You ever heard of Total Recall, Jarrett?
By Creeps alum Paul Verhoeven?
Yeah. You think that's a half-star film?
No.
What about The Master from PTA?
I mean, it's not one of my favorite PTAs, but half a star?
A half a star? And then also Braveheart, which I don't think is fair.
Wow. That's just offensive.
It's just shameful. Shameful.
Finally, one more. Logan O'Rourke.
Okay.
Half a star. The worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life. I wish I had those 2 hours of my life back.
I mean, it's hard to say if it's worse than a 5-star film that a film that they gave 5 stars to, Jared. Do you know a director named Owen Hurley? I doubt it.
No.
There's no reason you should. He made a film in 2003 called Barbie of the Swan Lake. Owen Hurley only makes Barbie movies, to which this person gave some 5 stars to. And then like Band of Brothers. And like he's like, you're all over the place. And then 1 star to a Barbie movie. So apparently, they watch a lot of Barbie movies. Some of them are 5 stars. Some of them are 1 stars.
Oh, wow.
But
it's like one or the other.
Yeah, there's no in between here.
I've watched a deal of. I've seen the one that she rated 5 stars is just ridiculous. It does not deserve it at all. Like there's no substance. But like, I don't know. So it's all over the place, I've been forced to watch those.
I'm glad we have an authority here for this, because here's one of their most popular reviews is of Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus 3D from 2005.
Yeah, that's the one that sucks.
So they gave that 5 stars, and their review is better 3D than Avatar. James Cameron could never.
Is this?
Yes. The best part of this movie is the end has like almost like a sizzle reel, almost like outtakes or whatever.
I
like
will point
style.
out that Logan O'Rourke's Twitter handle is SheTroll.
Oh no. Well, maybe this is a troll review. I don't know.
It's something about the fact that every one of their reviews is a run-on sentence. I feel like that's very intentional.
Hmm.
Interesting. So, hey, tell me more about that sizzle reel. That sounds good.
It was the only thing entertaining about the movie. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
I just, since we had you here, I thought we need to tap into what these Barbie movies are about. You know, it's
They're there to sell toys. They're like Star Wars, but not good.
I get it. It's the first time it's popped up on our radar, though. So this is a brave new world for me. Let's see. The one that they gave 1 star, and then I know Jared's just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, whatever. The one they gave 1 star to was Barbie in the 12 Dancing Princesses from 2006.
I can't say that I've seen that one.
King Randolph sends for his cousin Duchess, Rowena, to help turn his daughters, Princess Genevieve and her 11 sisters, into better ladies. But the Duchess takes away all the sisters' fun, including the sisters' favorite pastime, dancing. Thinking all hope is lost, they find a secret passageway to a magical land where they can dance the night away.
They can dance if they want to.
Beautiful.
There's one more here. Half star from Lance. Unpromising debut, which I clicked on their review of the movie, and I think like in the surroundings of their watching it. Oh, come on. Their next, the previous movie was a Criterion, The Silence, which was 4 stars. But the movie they watched after Slacker was Taste of Cherry, which was 1.5 stars, and was one word review of suicide.
Taste of Cherry's pretty good.
But that was also followed by Summer Catch, starring Freddie Prinze Jr., and that was 2 stars.
Ooh. That's a great movie. That's not 2 stars. This person has a lot of ratings, but like a lot. 5 stars to Human Centipede 2, Jarrett.
Whoa.
Interesting. And 5 stars to the Inspector Gadget movie starring Matthew Broderick. 5 stars to Salo, apparently.
Salo.
You know, whatever. This dude really likes this person, whatever Lance is, really likes Human Centipede and Ghost World.
Hey, that's actually good.
I know, but do those fit together? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, anything else you guys want to say about Richard Linklater, Slacker, Austin, Michaels, Tyson?
Mike Tyson? What? Not from me. What about you, Jared Berger?
I'm all good.
All right. Right on.
Very well. After the break, we're throwing this fucking podcast over that bridge into the river.
Okay.
That's
Thank
it.
God.
Yeah, that's good.
It's over with.
Yep.